What's up guys? Today we're going to check out Inside Out 2 on 4K UHD. I'm not here to talk about how good or bad the movie is, I'm just going to share some thoughts on the audio and video quality. Now let's go over a few tech specs. The movie is animated, it's rated PG, runtime is 96 minutes, aspect ratio is 239:1, so there are black letterbox bars, and the audio is in Dolby Atmos. Before we take a look at the audio and see how active this mix is, if you don't know what the Atmos viewer is, you can find a link down below in this video's description that tells you all about it, what it does, and where to get it. You can also find a list of all the gear that I use for these 4K reviews down there as well. If you've seen the first Inside Out, you probably know that that has a really good Atmos audio mix, and it's a real deal fully active dynamic mix. Part 2, on the other hand, is still a pretty active mix, but it does remain mostly a static channel-based mix for most of the runtime. Now, starting off the movie, I got a little bit worried because the lower 7 channels were active, along with only 2 of the top channels, which were the 2 middle channels. So I thought this was going to be your standard Disney 7.1.2 mix. But as it progresses, for most of the movie, the top front and rear channels got used quite a lot. It's predominantly musical extension with some light ambiance. There's plenty of lower channel movement with the occasional full-on dynamic objects. At 10 minutes 31 seconds and almost every scene that happens in the memory cave, when they release the memories, they float up in the air and scatter throughout all your top speakers. The 2 most aggressive scenes comes in at 1 hour 45 seconds. This is the brainstorm scene. In this scene, you'll hear those light bulbs swirling around your entire room and throughout your top channel speakers. At 1 hour 14 minutes, Joy dives into the water and you get water swooshing in circles around your entire theater. I think that those are the 2 best sounding parts of the movie with the most aggressive Atmos usage. I should also mention that bouncing between Ready Player One and Inside Out 2, they both sounded the same level-wise, although Ready Player One did have noticeably heavier and deeper bass response. It still sounded really good, but just didn't hit quite as hard. At 12 minutes 40 seconds in, there's a wrecking ball that comes crashing into the headquarters that shook my seats, and there is an explosion that happens at 1 hour 12 minutes that digs nicely as well. There's a few other parts that sounded decent bass-wise, but nothing that's really going to push your subwoofer's abilities. And dialogue also sounded crystal clear as well. And thank you to Kaleidoscape for supplying me with this copy of Inside Out 2 so I could bring you, the home theater movie loving community, this 4K review. If you want to pick up your own Kaleidoscape and get your movies weeks and sometimes months before they come out on 4K Blu-ray, you can get one at our channel partner, Dream Media. Links can be found down below in this video's description. As for video quality, this did look the same as when I saw it at the Dolby Cinema. It's 4K crisp with clean lines and razor sharp detail. There's good contrast between the almost plush, glowing looking character design and the way how some of their clothing looked almost like real fabric. You can actually count the fibers on Embarrassment's hoodie. That's how detailed the transfer is. As for the color palette, it's got that bright, bold HDR vibrancy that's gonna look great on your 4K display. I didn't see or notice any kind of detail being clipped in any of the bright highlighted areas, and the overall picture brightness, while it isn't eye-scorchingly bright, still had a ton of pop. The black levels looked great with no crushing of detail in the darker scenes, and I didn't see any weird color banding or any kind of weird other artifacts. It's an overall great looking cartoon, so I'm gonna go with a 9.9 for video. As for audio, I was expecting this to be another Atmos mix, but surprisingly, it's actually really good. No, it's not a true dynamic mix like the first movie was, so if you've got more than 7 lower channels, most of those extra channels aren't going to get used all that much. High channel activity stays active for a lot of the time and wasn't only relegated to the top middle channels. Bass could have been better, but it still had plenty of good response. Now, if Inside Out 1 is a 10, I'd have to give Inside Out 2 an 8. Now, this review was based on the Kaleidoscape version, which comes in at 52.8 gigs for the Dolby Vision version and 58.6 gigs for the HDR10 version. If you're waiting to pick this up on 4K Blu-ray, since the file sizes aren't that big, I'd assume they'd look nearly identical, and they should sound exactly the same as well. Or you can just buy it right now on the Kaleidoscape. And from what I'm hearing, the Kaleidoscape version is probably going to be the cheaper way to go. So what are your thoughts on Inside Out Part 2? Have you seen it and do you think it's better than the first one? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Now, if you do want to pick up this movie, I will leave some links for it down below in this video's description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you want, you can follow us on social media. And if you want to support the channel, get exclusive content or great discounts on audio and video gear, then stop by our Patreon page. Be sure to like this video if you found it useful and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you again in the next video.